plan or just let's roll the dice and see what happens? We will get to find out, though. Gentlemen, take it away.
As expected, Jack, we see those invis pots popped right away. Of course, they will incur that 10-minute pot CD. Won't be able to use a lot of their offensive pots. This will definitely be over a 10-minute dungeon, if I may take a gander. So they will immediately move up to this first boss, the Amalgam of Souls. Nothing too crazy here. Has two phases. Starts off regularly. The tank needs to point the boss away because of his 180 frontal cleave. It will one-shot anyone. If it doesn't, makes them take increased damage. And of course, there is those spirit AoEs going down that if you're caught in the swirly, you will get feared. And finally, that scythe going out, which is quite a pest, especially for ranged players and healers.
Yeah, that's one thing you're seeing. You're seeing all the ranged players who are just kind of spreading out here. And you have double Boomkin and a hunter here. So people really need to get spread out. You're seeing Big Luke, for example, just running around in circles so that he's able to let those reflection pulses and stuff like that not take up any other extra space, as the boss of course is channeling in the middle of the room here, or is about to be in just a second.
So the second transition here, of course, we do want to kill these restless souls. There's 8 of them that spawn around the room. Each one that reaches the boss will add a substantial amount of extra percentage damage to his AoE that he will mandatorily do at 15%, or once all these mobs are killed. Boomkins, of course, very effective here for all of this spread dotting and AoE. Once they go down, the Amalgam will cast that massive spell. I'm sure everybody's going to use their appropriate CDs and immunities to make sure they don't get one-shot, and they should be able to easily clean up the boss. Meanwhile, Lethal just catching up to them in that second phase, cleaning up those tormented souls.
You're seeing right here, the Friends of Affixes has a really nice defensive composition where they're all going to be having defensive. The Soul Burst goes off. They do take tons and tons of damage, but you're having 3 druids able to go into bear form, and then you have a tank, right? So you have such strong defensives that you're able to really easily deal with the big damage here, and you're also going to be seeing it at Ravencrest on the last boss.
Yep, so they are finishing up Amalgam right now. There's going to be a fair bit of downtime RP as these, some of these lore figures come in and open the door leading up to the second boss, up the stairwell. Meanwhile, Amalgam just doing their AoE over on Lethal side. They should be cleaning up the boss soon. So a fair bit of extra damage on Friends with Affixes side.
Yep, and you're seeing, Lethal is, of course, cleaning it up right now. They're getting the rest of it, and now everybody's just kind of waiting on Friends of Affixes side to kind of clean up the door. You're seeing Feral Dog, their healer doing a very, very large amount of damage, and actually out DPSing the tank there. So it's really nice to be able to get a little bit more ahead, because now, Friends of Affixes is about to get through the door. Lethal has to kind of sit through the rest of the RP.
Yep, so there is, so things have seemed quite easy so far, but we know it's just about to happen. Now, having skipped all of that trash leading to the first boss, they don't really have much option in skipping trash here. They will kind of have to kill everything leading up to the very last boss of the dungeon. Going up the stairs now, we do see these spiderlings. There's going to be a ton of them. They do apply a stacking magic dot to the tank, so they'll need to be frequently dispelled. And of course, when they die, they do drop that AoE green swirly there that also applies that same dot to players caught within it. Along with a bit of burst AoE damage.
And one of the biggest things I hate as a healer is actually just fighting on stairs. It's so easy to lose line of sight on people, and you're seeing Feral Dog doing whatever he can to kind of stay ahead of the tank here and not lose sight of him. Because right here where you're seeing, if the tank, for example, has to pull the biggest spider out of the way of the green pools, he has to move further up the stairs as the healer is trying to get line of sight on him. So you're seeing Feral trying to tail him whenever he can, but you're also not going ahead of him too much, because again, you're gonna be running into more trash mobs. You're gonna be running into chain pulling and things like that you have to worry about.
So as we're turning up this final flight of stairs, we are coming to some of the notoriously hardest trash in this dungeon, some of which all 3 of us were alluding to prior to starting this dungeon. What makes it so dangerous is not necessarily the immense tank damage coming out, but those archers and those scouts doing immense AoE damage and random AoE damage to the rest of the group, which when combined with raging at 30%, you can see the tank taking so much damage, cannot break out of that heavy stagger, barely keeping it alive.
No!
The tank does go down, Feral Dog goes down. I hope they're not regretting their choice of dungeon at the moment. It will be likely a full wipe. Not a full wipe. They're still trying to clean up these last few mobs. They can't all of us that scout. I think they'll be able to do it. Vim coming up big with making sure. Oh, make sure you avoid that AoE in the front. Oof.
Vim champ.
Vim Champ manages to clean up the pack, so prevents the full wipe, but almost simulating a full wipe at the end of the day. He is bleeding heavily from that grievous wound, and the other players will be running back up the stairs. A lot of time lost there. Meanwhile, Lethal already upstairs in that main hallway. And as I was saying, Jack, and you know this, of course, so much AoE danger on the group with these packs, and especially sub 30% with Raging, whether doing 100% increased damage, it's so easy for somebody to just get one shot.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you're having, Amanda, who's playing very, very defensively here. You're seeing, Rapture again, all the pre-shielding that you possibly can going out to start with, making sure that you're focusing anybody who is taking just a little bit of damage, because you want to make sure, again, this is Grievous, right? You want to make sure you isolate the Grievous stacks, you remove them as fast as you can, then you move on to the next target here. It's way better to just remove those Grievous stacks on one target rather than, trying to get them 2 or 3 different targets topped off of Grievous.
So of course, one advantage that DKs do have in here is they can control undead, and a common target is that one patrolling cat in the instance. They are very, very dangerous. They jump on players in AoE cleave. They have a really bad catitude. But once you MC them, you make sure that they're actually fighting for your side, so they're able to safely move to this next pack after Genera has picked up that cat.
Are the cats happier being on your side?
I think so.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. It also is very, very nice that you don't even have to worry about that Raging Cat, because right here when you're facing off against this mobs, you do have to worry about the champions, you have to worry about all the different undead mobs that are ahead of you, but you also don't want to have to worry about the possibility of a Raging Cat jumping on you and just dealing such ridiculous large amounts of damage.
And you see the really good CC chain coming in there. You see Amanda throwing up that shackle on some of those mobs that have started some of their AoE. The scouts particularly are ones you have to keep your eye on with that Fan of Knives type ability, the Knife Dance, excuse me, especially at Raging. So tossing up any CC they have, they're doing an excellent job lethal, making sure none of those adds are doing too much damage. The only unpreventable damage on the group will be those archers.
One thing you're seeing out of Amanda here is that she's running with the Deceiver's Grand Design trinket. You're able to see the little sound cue and the large absorb that it comes with, where it's a very, very safe trinket, and it's a very, very safe bet to run with, especially as you're going into these large packs here. So I mean, you're able to see it pop on Druvian. Amanda dropping ridiculously low here. Pops fade and was actually just going down too quick. There's so much damage. Getting Amanda up, she's got to play a lot of catch-up here, and this is what I'm talking about, where you're having multiple targets taking heavy damage. Ooh. Solar Power is going down. Zeos going down. Druvian's taking a lot of damage and still needs help getting it.
And you know what? This is a really rough part of the dungeon, because we're kind of mini gauntlet style here. This particular trash pack that they're doing at the moment, once you kill them, you're not out of the woods just yet. The next trash pack comes down immediately, and it keeps you in combat at all times and will chase you down wherever you are in the dungeon.
And Amanda going down again. These risen archers are just such a pain to deal with, and so many mobs are so low. And Genera's just trying to survive and get him down, but was not able to take down those last 3 mobs, and you have to get the cat back again.
The cat's not too much of a problem. I mean, control undead, can be spam cast. That's not an issue. But I mean, they barely touched that pack. They killed one mob. They're still gonna have to deal with that gauntlet coming up. Meanwhile, Friends with Affixes has now started working on the hallway themselves. It's just these mobs have so much health, and one of the biggest things that we failed to mention yet is these champions. They do a frontal shockwave, and if you do not hard interrupt them during that shockwave, they will cast a commanding shout for their allies, which increases their current HP by 50%. It's so much health to chew through, especially with that fortified on top of it.
You've seen Friends of FX is doing a really, really good job of making sure they're getting everybody stunned. All the raging's going on, so the CC chain is beginning. That leg sweep is just falling off, and yeah, here come all the strikes. There is a little bit of bolstering that's about to go off with that scout. Sorry, no, not bolstering. There's a little bit of extra damage that's going to be going out with the champions, of course, and again, you still have double raging archers that are picking away at people.
I love how all the ranged is bunkered up behind some of those stone blocks there. So they're going to finish off the last kind of mini boss mob here. Commander, he has a ton of health. As I mentioned, does have that frontal, does cast that commanding shout. Once they deal with this final mob, they will be able to proceed up the side stairs leading up to the second boss, Illisana. There will be one more pack of 3, 2 archers and 1 champion remaining.
Right, and you're seeing, again, Lethal is trying again at the second round of the gauntlet here, and of course it's just trying to line of sight them, trying to get all the mobs in together, and of course the stuns, again, are going out as the raging is beginning here, and they're doing a much, much better job of making sure people are staying topped off, but it's still a very, very rough road, making sure you're able to instantly get jumping on any of those targets that are taking a lot of damage. Like, one thing is, when you're not able to properly anticipate the damage and things like that, you just have to play so proactively, where, Amanda, for example, the second she took damage, she got dropped to about 15-20% HP. Then she pops Fade, and it wasn't even good enough. And you're seeing, again, Friends of Affixes, as they're going up the stairs, they're actually getting close to wiping them. I mean, they're having fired up down.
All of these shoots that you guys at home are seeing on the screen from the archers are on random targets. So when enraged, there's just so much extra damage going on. Even if the tank is taking the brunt of the damage from the champion, we just see so many more deaths tallying up, 2 more deaths tallying up on Friends with Affixes. All of this is going to, matter a lot in the long run of the dungeon at the end. We're equal 6 apiece now for wipes, but Friends with Affixes finally moving up to the second boss.
And it's very much a struggle when you have those random shoots that are going out, because you have to make sure that your priority, of course, is trying to focus up the Grievuses and keep people alive. But when you have all the shoots that are going off, of, like right as you're preparing to top somebody off to that 90% break point, then they get shot again, and then they're down to like 10, 15%. You have to just spam them so hard.
We just talked about it earlier. I'm not sure why they didn't re-MC the cat on lethal side. I suppose they opted to pull another mob. It doesn't look like they pulled any mob, actually. Either way, the cat did indeed have that enraged leap on 3 of them. Almost killed all 3 of them. Only the druid barely getting out, but the 2 warriors just got smacked.
It was very scary to see lethal. I mean, they let their cat out of the bag there, and it just really bit him.
Well done. Illisana, of course, a 2-phase boss. She does have a big Vengeful Shear strike on the tank that if they fail to have an active mitigation check, they will receive a debuff where they take 100% increased damage for, I believe, 20 to 30 seconds. Pretty high amount. She does also charge various targets with that Fell Blaze on the ground, which does a ton of damage. And of course, we've now seen that they have entered phase 2 once she reaches 100 energy, where she will summon 1 caster ad and 1 melee ad, one of those champions on the side, which you can CC. As you see, it's actually been CC'd out of bounds on the screen. You can barely see it in the top right there. In the meantime, all they need to do is interrupt the Arcanist, kite this I-beam around, and get some free cleave damage on her. One
of the nice things about having Druids and Hunters, for example, is you're seeing that the champion in the very top right is trapped right outside of the gate. Usually they jump right over the gate, and then they get engaged in combat. They get put into melee range really, really quickly. As a priest, for example, you're able to shackle and dead them, but by the time that you're able to get the cast off, if you don't do like a Shining Force knockback or something like that, it's so easy for them to just get drawn into melee, get in cleave range, and take a ton of damage.
Yeah, so we've now come back to phase 1. It is a timed event, her phase 2. Now that she's downstairs, we're having another wipe, or not another wipe, another death rather, from Amanda down on lethal side. They do manage to clean up the pack. Luckily, they still have that druid alive for the res, so she doesn't have to run all the way back from the checkpoint at the first boss, which is a very punishing run back. Friends with Affixes look like they're well cleaning up Illisana, and lethal only just now moving up and starting that boss.
It's very, very scary when you're having, again, these Risen Archers that just do random shots damage, and the amount of defensives that you have, the ability for each class to have their defensives, to be able to mitigate the damage as best as they can, because this stuff can ramp up out of nowhere, and it's very, very difficult to keep up.
So now we're moving up to the remaining half of the dungeon, where we will see some boulders falling down the stairs. Now, the first boulder pattern on these stairs is actually very predictable. It's always left, right, etc. Easy to dodge. We'll see some tougher stairs later, and they move up to what is some, of course, more dangerous trash in here, with a lot of those small mob casters, and the most dangerous ones being those big blade lords that deal a ton of damage to the tank, on top of fortified, on top of enraging. They have to make sure to interrupt their casts, hard interrupts, of course.
You're seeing lethal, of course, working again on Illisana, getting that Fell Rush out. I mean, Zeos is dropping super, super low from the damage, and now Friends of Affixes is, of course, doing some very, very large pulls, trying to burn these ads down as rapidly as they can. They have to really watch out for this Blade Lord. When it gets enraged, it just deals ridiculous damage.
It gets damage at low health. On top of it, we have enraged, and of course, its brutal assault needs to be hard interrupted. As I just said, it does so much damage to the tank. They have to deal with it quickly. Well done on them. There will be 2 of those Blade Lords at the end of this path. They are taking this hallway relatively safely, just because they know how dangerous these mobs can be with these affixes.
You're seeing, I mean, the hard interrupts of just the stuns, you're not able to just kick it or anything like that. You just have to make sure you get a big stun on them, or like you were talking about, just get them dead as fast as possible. Right here, they're pulling the rest of the mobs.
As I said, they were doing a safe pull. They pull the remainder of the hall. Those Blade Lords are, of course, the most dangerous here. They have to make sure that they're saving leg sweep, etc. for that, or some really big CDs for the tank, especially if they reach that 30% threshold.
Yeah, you're seeing right here, I mean, they're getting the rest of the Blade, or I guess the rest of the Scavengers down. The Blade Lords have not yet enraged, but they are very, very close to. So it's going to be a very big show of just Jason getting away from them, getting as big CDs as possible. Any kind of extra stuns they're going to be able to go out here.
So, I mean,
huge damage going out on him.
Even a monk that's so well known for smoothing damage and having such a predictable damage input, those Blade Lords just do so much damage. We saw him chunk down there to low 20s%. Looks like Feral Dog's having a bit of trouble catching up with the Grievous on Big Luke.
And it's one of the problems just with healing in general, is that when you have such a large focus stamina, look at how long Jason, for example, was in Red Stacker. He was in it for such a long period of time that you have to keep on spamming him to make sure he's going to stay topped off. Otherwise, you're just going to be losing more people that, he's not able to focus. He's not able to make Big Luke a priority for him. He has to prioritize the tank first.
So they are done with this trash. They're moving, of course, to the second Indiana Jones style bit up the stairs. They are certainly between a rock and a hard place here as the boulders come down the stairs. First person to reach the top of the stairs will stop the event, and these boulders will stop coming down the stairs. So usually you want one of your faster targets. Druids in this case is a good example with their dash to make sure they go up the stairs first and stop this event so that some of the slower players can get back up there.
Like priests.
Like priests and death knights.
And death knights. That's right. So of course, you know, the interesting thing here is going to be how they're going to be treating the gauntlet. Of course, the bats will keep on coming. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to stop at, you know, a certain plateau, or if they're going to just keep on running. You know, usually you'll see a lot of times it's a lot more safe just to be stopping here, getting mobs down, and then moving on.
Yeah. The big danger is here is there are 6 of these Dominators which do cast these Fell Frenzies, which buffs everything around them. But the most dangerous thing they cast is Sick Bats. Fell Frenzy is interruptible, whether with just, you know, a kick or a hard CC. Sick Bats, however, is a very quick cast, and it causes all the bats around them to immediately fixate on one of the non-tank players, and they can easily just get decimated in moments. Now, we have seen some ballsier pulls, of course, where they pull everything, all 6 of these Dominators up to the 3rd boss room, try to AoE everything down. I think they're playing it safer here because of how dangerous Trash is in here with Fortified, especially the Raging. So they're opting to kill 3 of 6 of these Dominators, and then they'll likely clean up these bats and move up to the boss room with the remaining 3.
Now you're seeing Lethal also putting out a very, very big pull here, trying to catch up some ground, some lost ground here. And right here, you're just going to be seeing how well they're going to be able to get all these mobs down, get everybody focused. And the warrior damage is ridiculous, so you're right. Huge damage going on in the tank here as the Blade Lords are about to enrage. So the stun actually went off just before they were enraged, but just before any of the Brutal Assault casts. So they actually don't have any slows, and the DK tank is just running for his life.
Yeah, you got to make sure that it LOS the heal. That Brutal Assault has a huge range on it. You can only, you know, well, you can only outrange it so far. Luckily, they're cleaning that up. Jason Bruce going down so low, but does go down completely now. And again, this is a gauntlet, so if they wipe here, they're going to have to redo all of that. Of course, minus those 3 Dominators, but all the bats will respawn on the stairs consistently.
I mean, the thing to worry about, of course, is these Dominators keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so they have to be able to get themselves, you know, reorganized, be able to take care of it. I believe we had a rock death.
I believe we had a rock death.
Ooh. I'm not alone.
I mean, he rocked his world. The remaining, so they actually do manage to clean up those Devastators, even without Jason. They did battle, ultimately, yeah, they did battle res them, but for a while they managed to well kite those down the stairs. Now they'll just be having to get back up to the boss room. I believe they pulled the remaining 3, if I'm not mistaken, so that was all of them. Once that happens, of course, the gauntlet does stop. The bats do stop spawning. No one's up at bat. We're about to pull the 3rd boss here in just a moment. Nothing too scary about this guy, but he does do a lot of damage on the group.
And that's definitely a concern with Grievous, because you have to make sure that you're not letting any of these Grievous get away. You're not letting them build up, because the moment that you're not careful, the stomp that comes out from Smash Spite is just going to drop them so low, and then Grievous is going to be finishing them off.
Of course, we do have this Hateful Gaze mechanic where he will select a player and charge them for massive damage. Other players are meant to get in the way and make sure they intercept that, which causes them to have a debuff, making them take increased damage from from subsequent Hatefuls, excuse me. So they'll need to kind of rotate players, or the tank can take it, a few of them, in a non-tyrannical setting. One important thing to note here is how well their placement for the bat acid lines are going to be. You are targeted with a faint green beam, after which you'll have a few seconds to move to the side of the screen.
Lethal's taking tons and tons of damage here, and actually having their tank going down, Zero's going down, and the other warrior, of course, is going down. It's just so much damage, and the other druid would be just trying to do whatever they can, and Amanda is about to fall as well. So yeah, they are having a full-on wipe here.
Yeah, they did try to do that big pull that we were talking about earlier. The only problem is if you don't CC and get those mobs down really quickly, you run out of space so quickly in this boss room, because you can't use the entire boss room, as we see here with the Friends with Affixes screen, without pulling that boss. So you will have to kill them, or they will kill you once they corner you. That's just the way it's going to work. So they're doing a very good line of dropping these a very good job, excuse me, of dropping these bat lines around the side of the arena, so that once the boss does do his AoE punt, stomp, knock back there, not knocked back into that poison, and take extra damage as a result.
Yeah, and like you said, they're standing very, very close into the boss here, so that every single time that the Earthquaking Stomp goes out, they're not ever landing in any of the bat guano or anything else that's going on. There is one cutting through the middle of the group here, but you don't really have to worry about it at this point, because the boss is going down for him.
Should be good. So now, of course, they will be moving up to the final stairwell leading up to the last boss, which is filled with 2 types of mobs, the swordsmen and, of course, those lancers. The lancers will target an area and then AoE jump onto them, stunning everything within it for 4 to 5 seconds. Very dangerous. And the swordsmen themselves do tons of tank damage with their main cast, Coup de Gras, which will of course nuke the tank very hard and is very, very scary in the raging territory.
And right here, it definitely has a favorable advantage to any just kind of mobile classes, because you have to be able to stay light on your feet. And again, Lethal is still working on all these bat packs, having another warrior going down here, and just having all kinds of problems. They're trying to take their time here. They're trying to get all the Dominators down just a little bit slower, but they're still just losing so much time and having so many
And
deaths.
in the meantime, Friends with Affixes is already moving up the stairwell. It is a non-teaming environment, of course. Another death down on lethal. I mean, this gauntlet is just proving lethal for them. It looks like they're going to have a full wipe going back downstairs to the checkpoint at the second boss. Very punishing runbacks in this dungeon because it's just so much area to cover, so they'll have to get back up there and try again. Friends with Affixes in the meantime moving up the final stairwell. There's 2 sets of 2 and then 1 set of 4 of these remaining trash monsters that they'll have to kill.
One of the things that, we were talking about in terms of the team comp that's going around, I mean, Lethal is just trying to pick up the pieces together. They're trying to make sure that they're able to get through the rest of this instance, but it's rough. I mean, you have double melee here, and you're trying to be able to move, get all these ads down, focus fire some of the dominators and things like that. The focused interrupts that are going after it. It's not easy at all to do, and it just kind of compounds on itself with the Grievous that's going out here. It's just so difficult.
So there are a couple of pockets that we see Lethal taking advantage of where you can go in the corner once you've killed some of the Devastators, kind of pit stops, if you will, on the way to the third boss, where you will not aggro bats, one of them just where they tucked in right there. So they want to clean up these remaining bats, get their players back up, and then do the remaining half of the pulls. Friends with Affixes, though, of course, looking really dominant right now. They're pulling the last trash pack prior to Ravencrest, the last boss.
All right, and right here you're seeing Friends of Affixes just getting the leg sweep down, getting the last couple of stuns that they are able to get, and just cleaning up the rest of these Lancers. They're getting, and like I said, you're moving on to Ravencrest while Lethal hasn't even pulled Smash Bite yet.
So, of course, we have a kind of 3-phase boss here. We will be fighting Kur'talos first. Not too much health, does a bit of a nuke on the tank, a glaive in the area, and you will have to dodge a big purple beam. Nothing to write home about there. However, once he reaches, I believe, 20% health, we will see the main boss come out, and the players will be getting a 300% damage, healing, and HP buff to deal with the boss's massive damage and health pool. Now, the important thing to note is that prior to getting that buff, the boss does melee the tank a few times and do 1 round of Shadow Bolt AoE volley, which absolutely can decimate players, even in a non-tyrannical setting. So these players, especially like you mentioned earlier, because of the tanks, because of the bears that, the boomkins that have the ability to go into bear, they'll have the chance to do that and soak some of those Shadow Bolt volleys.
Lethal is still having a hard time getting past the rest of these Dominators here. They're getting all the slows that they possibly can out. I mean, they've lost most of their DPS, they've lost their healer as well, so it's just the DK and the Druid just all alone trying to take down the rest of them. And again, it's just a really rough road by Lethal here. I mean, we were talking about how you wanted to pick some kind of map that would be straight up, that'd be a little bit more simplistic for the Affixes presented to us, but it's been a very profitable pick by Friends of Affixes, just putting Lethal in a very uncomfortable position.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. Lethal finally now managing to clean up this gauntlet, very sloppily nonetheless. They do have to get Amanda back up there for the reses. I doubt they have that battle res prepared. Luckily, 2 of them do survive, manage to kill off those Dominators. In the meantime, Friends with Affixes is on Dentalian Axe, the final boss. They have gotten their buff here, I believe, and at this point it's just a matter of making sure that you kill the insect swarms that he spawns on players because they do a ton of damage, and during his kind of mini transition phase, making sure you're avoiding the beam in the correct here we go right now, in the correct either counter or clockwise direction, depending on which way it procs.
Yeah, right here you're seeing the group is kind of split up, so everyone's kind of making sure they're avoiding any of the laser beams that are going out. Very ambitious cast there by Farrell, just trying to keep Big Luke alive. One of the scariest things is when you're forced to be moving here and you're having Grievous that's still stacking up on players, and you only have so much in the way of mobile casting that you have ahead of you. So you don't want to be having like the Stinging Swarm going out and just having the target dropping so low here.
Lethal just now pulling Smash Fight, the third boss, which we saw earlier. I mean, they have their work cut out for them. At this point, Friends with Affixes, I mean, once again, we're just back to the same point. The only way they can lose this is if they wipe, go out for dinner, come back, and then start playing again. In a moment, we will likely have one more transition phase with the merry-go-round style part of the encounter. But, I mean, they probably got this in the bag at this point.
Exactly right. And you're seeing, just how well, and this is kind of interesting how Rob brought it up, where it wasn't necessarily that one team was a superior team or anything like that, but it was also just about how they would perform in accordance with a specific affix on a specific map and how well they would actually be able to prepare for this. And that's just one of the highlights of the semifinals.
I mean, I love this. We saw this yesterday too. Absolution's like, all right,